Right, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Split the Fence podcast, a podcast in which we aim to build a new, purely hypothetical society where the only limits are a lack of insight, imagination, and intelligence. Today we'll be tackling the polarising issue of capital punishment. I am one of your hosts, Fraser. I will also be joined by Callum. How are we, Callum?
It's all good, all good.
All good with Callum? Okay. And also Josh. How are you, Josh?
I'm Josh. I'm doing pretty good. How are you, Fraser?
How are you, Josh? I'm Josh. Yeah, no, I'm alright. I'm a bit frustrated because I've just had yeah, I know, terrible. I've had a bit of a kitchen mishap just now while preparing some food to eat before I came on this amazing podcast. Essentially, I was, making some pasta because it's one of the only things I can prepare because I'm shit at cooking. I was doing pretty well. Things were going swimmingly. Boiled the pasta very well. Used the colander with flying colours.
I think it's hard to use colander without flying colours, to be honest.
No, you could.
You could.
I don't know, drop it. That's happened to me before.
You could drop it.
Not pleasant. Nah. Some of that hot water.
With all your food in.
Oh no! Sometimes when you're pouring the pasta into the colander, you can be a bit too eager, and it can splash everywhere. And then you drop your pasta in the sink, and if you've got a dirty sink like I do, you're fucked. You're never getting that pasta back. That's unrecoverable.
Yeah.
There's a lot of room for error with a colander. Not as simple a device as you might think. But anyway, so my trauma arose from when I was actually happy with my meal, right, pasta. I thought, this is kind of boring. I'm feeling a bit exotic today. I might put a bit of pesto on it. I'm a bit cheeky like that. So I grabbed what I assumed to be the jar of pesto from the fridge. Went to dollop a little bit on there and give it a good mix around. But it ended up actually not being pesto, but instead being mango chutney, which
oh no.
I know, it was a very unpleasant surprise. Obviously, I didn't put it in my mouth thinking it was pesto. I'm not stupid. I can tell the difference between a lump of
What is mango chutney even used for? It's like poppadoms,
isn't curry in that.
It's got poppadoms in it, yeah.
I thought it's quite a niche thing.
I don't know why we've got it in the fridge, to be honest.
Oh, nice.
I don't think it even goes in the fridge. It's like...
No, it does. It's always like cold.
Isn't it?
Well, you'll have to take that with my mum.
I might have
to. But yeah, it wasn't that big of an issue, to be honest. It was just a bit annoying having to wash all the chutney off my pasta and then use the colander again.
There are worse things that could have happened, though.
There are worse things that could have happened, but I feel like you could say that about pretty much anything.
Oh, yeah.
One terrible thing which could happen is, as a punishment for my crimes against pasta, I could be faced with the death penalty, which, funny enough, is what we're going to be talking about today.
What's a smooth transition?
I wouldn't say you wouldn't deserve it.
Yeah, considering what you've done.
Yeah, so as I said in the intro, what we're doing here is we're creating a sort of, it's essentially a thought experiment. We're going to be discussing if, all the politicians in the world died and we were hired to essentially run a new society, what choices would we, a bunch of fairly uneducated teenagers, what? You go to school?
Yeah, I've read a few books.
You've read a few books? Okay. Callum's read a few books.
I have read a few books.
I've read a couple of books. But, sorry, what?
Name them.
Name them. I can't read. I don't know.
Oh, I think you might be capping.
Yeah, I've called you a bluff.
But, so we're going to be deciding certain laws, and today we're going to be arguing over whether the death penalty has a place in the judicial system. So, yeah, I think we should just get straight into it.
It is a human life, as a very high intrinsic value that nothing on earth could come close to, right?
We don't abuse abusers. We don't rape rapists. We don't burgle burglars. We just throw them in prison. So to me, the fact that some people are so intent on murdering murderers is ridiculous.
Perfectly good punishments, which still do offer certain retribution, but also don't violate that human right and don't have all the baggage that comes with violating that human right, such as incarceration for like 30 years, 40 years, for example.
Right, let's imagine that, you just received a call, mum's been stabbed, right?
Mum's been stabbed.
Call the person who did it, heaven forbid, right? It was Callum. Callum stabbed your mum.
You've caught me.
Is she dead, or is she just like trolled?
Yes,
so dead.
She's 6 foot
holes
under.
all over. She's looking like a shreddy right now. Would you find any sort of satisfaction in watching Callum be put?
Yeah.
So, Josh, let's start with you then. So, if the death penalty was going to exist in this hypothetical scenario, would you support it? And if so, why would you support it?
Yeah, I definitely support it. And the reasons I support it is simply because, some crimes are so abhorrent, they are deserving of death. And I'd like to see you prove me wrong, to be honest, because I think it's more justifiable.
Which crime specifically are we talking about?
Murder, definitely, because you're taking a life, so eye for an eye.
Yeah.
The big counts of, other crimes like rape, paedophilia, mainly just those three, anything to do with killing a life or causing immense suffering would be punishable by death.
I understand your view, yeah.
And when you talk about murder, obviously in Japan, they have it so essentially they very rarely give out the capital punishment for solo kills, right? You have to be essentially a serial killer to warrant that punishment.
Yeah, and I think the reason for that is solo kills, a lot of the time they're because, someone cheated, someone pissed them off. It's complicated, isn't it? Like, not all solo kills are just go around and stab someone.
Your line is premeditated murder.
Yeah, like if it's murder in a dispute, then it's complicated. If it's revenge, it's complicated, right? But if it's just innocent person killed, death penalty.
Okay, Callum, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, so you're basically arguing from a purely retributive standpoint, yeah? You're saying eye for an eye.
At this point, yeah, this is my retribution argument.
Yeah, okay. Well, to be honest, I think that's kind of an outdated mentality. Because if you want to argue purely from a retributionist point of view, you're saying, as I said, an eye for an eye, you basically ignore many things. Firstly, you ignore fundamental human rights, which you need for a society to run. Secondly, you ignore the whole of a consequentialist point of view. Like, you ignore the precedent. Like, what does that set? Does that enact a cycle of violence, for example? Could it be a slippery slope? And that's a similar argument to why people oppose euthanasia, like any killing by the state, effectively. So you've basically ignored any consequentialist point of view, and you have ignored fundamental human rights. And I think those are two things which I don't think any rational person should just completely discount.
How have I ignored fundamental human rights?
Because one of the fundamental human rights which you need for a society to run is not to kill people. And I know that the majority of the people which you would send to the death penalty have violated that human right. But I don't think that to prevent this cycle of violence from happening and to put a limit on state power, I do not think that you should, as a rational person, support the complete violation of that human right, even if you think it's punitively justified.
Right.
So, Callum, are you arguing that human rights are a societal construct or a moral standard? Because obviously that affects your argument.
Well, both. They are a societal construct. Basically, anything in a society is a societal construct. Like, there aren't, fundamental dog rights. If you're a dog in the wild, you're gonna get killed by a bear, and no one's gonna care. But what I'm saying is that for a society to run, you need to have certain limits, which just can't be breached under any circumstances. So that's just my view of human rights.
It could be said that by breaching one of those human rights yourself, by taking the life of another person, you are then forfeiting those human rights for yourself.
Exactly.
No, but I don't think that. Basically, that is still like a retributive argument. You're saying that because you've done this, you should deserve this punishment.
What's necessarily wrong with retribution, though?
Because firstly, as I said in the start of my argument, it completely ignores those two major things, which is any consequences of that action and the violation of human rights. And also, I just don't think it's an effective way for a society to run to say,
Okay,
but just let me finish my point. I'll be quick. Like, you've done this thing, therefore you deserve this punishment. Where there are perfectly good punishments, which still do offer certain retribution, but also don't violate that human right and don't have all the baggage that comes with violating that human right, such as incarceration for like 30 years, 40 years, for example.
What do you mean by baggage? Killing someone doesn't have incarceration.
It does
They're gone.
sort of it eliminate any potential for sort of rehabilitation, though.
Right,
And
but it
also-
also eliminates any potential
yeah.
for reoffending, which is very high among the vast majority of prisoners. So you're
no.
getting rid of any potential more human life loss.
What statistics do you have to back that up? So when you're talking about, well, bear in mind you have to be talking about the people which you would send to the death penalty, which are on the whole murderers. Let's say that you're a murderer. Let's say you murdered 2 people. Do you have any statistic to back up reoffending for those types of people if they've been in prison for 30 or 40 years?
The percentage of reoffending criminals in the UK.
No, you're talking about criminals. You could be talking about a drug dealer, for example. I want to know about people that you would actually send to the death penalty. That's the only relevant thing.
What?
Yeah.
So of murderers.
Effectively, yeah. Because
Okay.
you can't talk about
Okay,
something that's
hang
not
on.
relevant. Yeah.
Well, it's important to note that firstly, a lot of murderers just aren't released, so they can't reoffend, right?
Yeah. Which is a good thing, I think. Yeah.
However, 5% of murderers will reoffend within a year after leaving prison.
5% of murderers.
Yep. Which
Okay,
seems like a small amount, but considering A, it's within a year, and B, 5%, you know, that's 1 in every 20 person and will go on to kill at least one more human life.
So, Josh, if your goal here with capital punishment is to eliminate the chance of a repeat offence, essentially for a murderer, would it not be satisfactory to your conditions? Would it not be satisfactory to just throw them in the slammer for life with no exceptions?
Exactly.
Why have we got to be killing people?
But throwing someone in the slammer for life, that's tax money. That uses a lot of money. You've got to pay for the guards, the actual
on
the land,
average,
food.
keeping someone on death row is 10 times more expensive than keeping someone in jail for life.
Keep someone on death row, not killing them.
Yeah,
that's because death row is just a
well, you've got the
process.
you've got the appeals process, which is very taxing.
Court money. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. No.
It's 10 times more expensive. It's estimated that the California death penalty system has cost nearly $5 billion in the last year.
That isn't really a problem.
And that's money that could otherwise be invested into the prison system.
Right, but that isn't a problem with the concept of the death penalty. That's how it's executed in.
Yeah, but you can't just
now.
ignore the complete practical application of your theory.
Right,
yeah, you're going to have to have some sort of appeal system. You can't ignore that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you basically just proved my point wrong.
Okay.
Can't really go against facts.
Yes.
Yeah. So what else did we touch upon there? Because we actually covered a lot of issues that I feel like we need to dabble into.
I'm still kind of picking apart the argument in my head, to be honest.
We touched on the issue of rehabilitation. Would you guys say that anyone could be rehabilitated given enough time in prison?
No.
I do think not
Some
anyone.
people.
No, I don't think anyone. But firstly, I think rehabilitation is something that the prison system could strive for. But there are a lot of people, especially on the left, that think prisons should only be for rehabilitation. I don't believe that. I think
rehabilitation only works for small, mainly non-violent offences.
Exactly. But there are certain people that you just
because they have a brain chemistry problem. You know, they're wired to kill people. Basically,
isn't it like something to do with the amygdala or something? They just can't really feel empathy. The same as other people.
They're literally wired.
Really gonna change
can't change that.
So in Japan, they place a large emphasis on whether the accused is feeling any sort of remorse for their actions. Large emphasis on empathy. So essentially, whether you're sentenced to death or not can depend on whether you're willing to apologise to families of victims. How do you guys feel about that? What are your thoughts on?
I think that's a slippery slope because the vast majority of serial killers are sociopaths, right? And therefore,
serial killers,
they are good at controlling, lying, manipulating their emotions, right?
Yeah,
so
I agree with that. If you're mentally fucked enough to go out and kill a bunch of people and then act as if you haven't done that, then it's pretending that you're sorry for it. It's going to be a complete
you're not going to suddenly change.
I don't really trust that.
That's a stupid system.
It is. I agree.
That's only really going to work for if you scratch someone's car as you drive past them, you know. saying
Exactly.
sorry,
Yeah.
not like killing a bunch of people.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we've agreed on that it shouldn't be just contingent on empathy.
I feel like it should definitely be given. I personally don't think it should be given at all. But if it were to be given, it would have to be purely based on the crime that's been committed and the context of the individual. So, like their background, what was influencing them to do that crime, stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because I just don't think you can really trust people's performances like that. Because it's really easy to fake that.
Hang on. When you say context of the individual, like what caused them to do that crime? Let's say if someone was depressed, right, and they kill someone because they're like, I don't know, angry at the world, would that reduce their sentence in your opinion?
It depends on how far along the spectrum they are, I suppose.
I mean, if they're like,
it's hard to objectively quantify that, though, isn't it?
I don't think it should. Like, being mentally like insane or whatever might be a reason, but it definitely shouldn't be an excuse.
I agree on this one, to be honest.
For me, it really depends on how much the mental illness has influenced their actions.
No, but I just don't think you can really trust that though, because it's. I think I'm obviously no one here is a psychologist, but I think if you ask any psychologist, they would say that it's really hard to objectively quantify that. So I don't think you can really use that as an objective measure, especially if someone's life is involved. So I just think you should either have the death penalty for certain crimes, not have the death penalty at all. But I don't think you can really make it contingent on something as abstract, not abstract, something as effectively. So I know it's not really, but effectively
also
subjective.
As far as I know, murderers that have like mental problems are actually treated worse than normal because they're thrown in like mental hospitals with like zero, like basically no one gives a shit. So they're probably treated worse anyway. So
I'm pretty sure it's a lot harder to get. Is it parole when you leave prison, but you're still like controlled by the prison? Yeah. I think
you basically just get thrown into like a loony bin for the rest of your life. So
I think actually, right, no, this is a bit of a tangent, but I think there was this experiment where these people went into a mental institution and they basically acted completely normal in the mental institution because they were psychologists themselves. They wanted to see what it was like. They went in and acted completely normal, but then the people wouldn't release them because they just assumed, oh, you're mental, you must be faking this. So I don't think
I've seen that.
Yeah,
slippery slope.
Exactly.
Hard.
Okay, well, my main argument is that capital punishment it can be morally justified, but it's completely unnecessary. Like even if it was okay,
why do you say it's unnecessary?
Well, I just think that it completely contradicts the fairly tried and tested judicial system that we pretty much always have as a standard. To me, it's a very ugly, unnecessary deviation from what is otherwise a very satisfactory and streamlined system. As it stands, most crimes, with the obvious exception of like minor misdemeanors, right, they're met with an appropriate allocation of time in prison, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But for some reason, like the second someone's been murdered, people just like throw this system out the window and completely lose their shit and act on what I think is a very sort of primal instinct and desire for revenge, right?
Yeah.
We don't
abuse that.
We don't abuse abusers, like we don't rape rapists, we don't burgle burglars. We just throw them in prison. So to me, the fact that some people are so intent on murdering murderers is ridiculous.
I fully agree with that point. Yeah.
My counter to that would be, firstly, a murderer killing someone, they're taking away something. It is a human life, as a very high intrinsic value that nothing on earth could like come close to, right? Because it can't be brought back, right?
Okay, but by that logic, should we be taking away the lives of the murderers as well?
Exactly.
Because the punishment must have the same severity as that crime. Because otherwise, 50 years in prison, right? That's nothing to a human life, right? Because the person's still alive, they're still doing things. That doesn't make up for the crime.
Why should it be though?
What if they weren't doing things?
Why should it make up for the crime?
No, because that's as Fraser said before. That's not how our judicial system works. Because the point of our judicial system isn't just inflict the pain that people have done back on them. The point of our judicial system is firstly, I think primarily, to keep violent and potentially dangerous people away from mainstream society.
Yeah, secondly, and killing them is doing that easily.
No, Josh, let me
the 5 goals of prison, I believe, are, I think it's like incapacitation, rehabilitation.
Wait, what does incapacitation mean?
So stop them from going out and committing more crimes.
Yeah, definitely does that.
Incapacitation, rehabilitation, a deterrent,
Death penalty does that.
retribution, and there's
Death penalty does
probably
that.
another one.
Yeah, but Josh, you keep repeating the death penalty does that. Josh, so does a life
3
penalty.
out of 4 those goals.
Yeah, but Josh, a life sentence in prison fills out all of that, and it doesn't have the added baggage, which I said before.
What is so-called added baggage?
The family of the person you've killed is probably some baggage, I would say. You've just created another whole family of victims there.
All the precedent that is set, the violation of one of the most intrinsic human rights, and I just don't think you can really stand by that.
It's not a violation because they've chosen to violate human life, human rights, and therefore they don't really have a say anymore.
No, but Josh, as we've said multiple times, that's not how our tried and tested judicial system actually works.
Yeah, it's not how it works now, but I'm arguing that it should work like that.
But why? Because I don't think that if you universalise that, I don't think that would create a positive society, a good society.
What does universalise mean? Explain that.
So the point you're saying is that you think that and the eye for an eye mentality should be how the judicial system runs, basically. Well, that is what you just said.
Not for like burglars that like having their stuff stolen.
Why for murderers?
Yeah, that's
I
funny,
don't understand. I understand why.
Because murderers are doing because they're committing. They're taking something. Like I said, it's human life, high intrinsic value. Nothing else on earth gets close to it. So therefore, it's such like a niche crime, unique crime. There must be met with a unique niche punishment.
Yeah, you can say it just must be, but I don't really understand your reasoning because let's say that you have someone that, let's say that I punch someone and they break their legs, and they can never really walk again, they can never have a positive life, they can't work again. How is that really that different to killing them? Unless you're making just let me finish my point. Unless you're making like a religious argument about, the soul and, the actual intrinsic value of human life because God's given you a soul, I don't see why that would... Yeah, exactly. So I don't see why is it so different.
I think we can all agree that if someone's killed, they cannot be brought back, right?
Yes, obviously.
Yeah.
Yep. And
okay, so if someone's been killed, they can't be brought back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously.
You've got no chance in bringing them back. So what if you've wrongly executed someone who's not guilty of the crime?
Okay.
By the way.
Now this, again, this is the fact that humans are flawed, but people are thrown into prison for life for no reason. So
at least then there's a chance that they can.
Yeah,
exactly. And I do agree with that. That's why the death penalty just doesn't work.
That is a problem that would have to be basically completely like no one like if there's even the slightest bit of doubt, the death penalty would not apply.
So
it would have to be 100% evident.
The cost is worth it, essentially. The cost of accidentally.
No, the cost isn't, but we'd make sure there wouldn't because like there has to be 100% evidence. Like you can.
Yeah, you can't do that. No, you can't. You can't do that.
Video footage.
Josh,
you can't have 100% evidence on some things. Can we agree? Can we agree?
Josh, it's not the point I'm making.
But we can agree that you can have 100% evidence on some people committing crimes. Yeah, so only kill those people with 100% evidence.
Yeah, but that's not how our judicial system. Do you not think?
But it should if there was a death penalty.
Let me make my point. Jesus, it's so annoying.
Brian Callum.
So
podcast listeners, you have to get used to this.
Get used to Josh not letting anyone else talk. Right, so do you not think the judicial system always tries to have 100% evidence, but it can't? It can't always have 100% evidence, and it rarely has 100% evidence.
Right, but if it can't, it won't kill those people where it doesn't have 100% evidence. It only kills people with 100% evidence.
But that's rarely ever going to happen.
Yeah, right? That's how it would work in this new land.
Okay, but then that's rare. Yeah, but then the death penalty is effectively never going to be used.
Well, no, it'll be used sometimes.
But then,
let's
say there's almost. Let's say that the chance of someone, because fingerprints is usually like 1 in like 7 million or something. Would you not? That's not 100% evidence.
No, fingerprints aren't enough.
Yeah, exactly.
It would have to be the odds would have to be below a certain threshold, like ridiculously low, or 100% evidence.
But then it just goes in. It just goes into negligibility because yes, you can. Let's say if you commit the murder in front of a camera, but someone that's going to commit murder isn't going to do that. So it's only really going to be used very, very rarely. And if you're only going to violate all these human rights and ignore all of these fundamental things about our justice system, why would you not just not do it? Because it just goes into
being used rarely is better than never being used.
Also, if it's never dished out for these crimes, which we hate so much, right? Then it's going to serve almost no purpose as a deterrent, is it?
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's going to be so few and far between.
Right.
If you're not
deterrent is don't do it in front of a camera.
But like I said, deterrence isn't the only argument for this. It would still, even if it's just one person in 1,000 years, that's still one person that's being prevented from ever reoffending, and that's still one person that's been given closure to the families of the killed.
Actually, Josh, you bring up closure, yeah? So,
Yeah.
I think there is... Actually, no, I'm not going to bring up that statistics. I'll probably bring it up later, or someone else will bring it up later. But I don't
I'll bring it up. I'd like
no.
to.
I don't remember the
like
exact statistic, but one of my friends knows the exact statistic.
Oh, I know the exact statistic.
Yeah. Fraser, can you say it?
Do you?
All right,
How
so
convenient.
you're talking about closure, right?
Yeah.
The retribution that those close to murder victims deserve. It's of my understanding, right, that this is completely unobtainable for anyone who's lost a loved one, because at this point in time, we're not capable of bringing back dead people, are we? It's not like when someone's been burgled, you can just like give them compensation, give the stuff back.
Yes.
Right. So this closure is unobtainable. So it's worthless to pursue.
The closure
right?
is obtainable.
No, it's not.
No, the family will never have to worry about that person ever again. Once
a University of Minnesota study, which I believe is the statistic you're after, Callum, found that only 2.5% of family members of victims admitted to gaining closure thanks to capital punishment. In fact, 20.1% said that it had no impact in the healing process whatsoever.
Yeah.
Right.
But Josh, the point I was going to make to use that statistic is that I think that if you think of closure as just a simple, like, primal instinct, catharsis, I've killed this person, I'm happy, I've got revenge, then yes, that would be closure. But I think for a lot of people, I would assume that closure would be able to talk to the person that killed their loved one and to see why they did it, see the reasons. And if you killed someone, you're never going to be able to do that. You can't bring humans back. But if that person is still alive, then if you ever need to ask them something, you ever need why did you do it? Why did you do it? You can still do that, but you can't do that if someone's died.
What? So are you saying you will never get the reason, and therefore you will never get the closure as why they died?
That's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is that I would suggest that by keeping someone alive, you get more closure.
They have time to reflect on their actions and can potentially come to apologise. Whereas if you cut them off from existence at the state where they're probably okay with what they've done, they're perpetually going to be they're going to be existing in a state where, not existing, but they're going to be in a state where they were happy with their actions, essentially.
Yeah, Josh, can I use an example of when this has actually happened?
Go on.
So I think it was in RS a few months ago. They mentioned this woman, I think she was called Mary Johnson. I'm not 100% sure of that, but her son was killed by someone else, and then she came to talk to that person that killed her son, and she came to get closure to them, and she came to realise why they'd done it, and that brought her immense closure. But if that person had been fried to death, yes, that would have given her a little bit of catharsis, but that wouldn't have brought her the closure that having that conversation, having that understanding of the person that killed her son would have given her.
Well, that depends on someone's opinion. Like, for some people, they wouldn't even want to talk to. They just want to kill the person that's killed their son with their own hands, right? But some people would. Like, it completely depends on what type of person you are. Like, it's opinionated. Like, the closure argument, I will admit, depends on the person and the family.
I think we can all agree on
that. I'm gonna stretch your imagination here a bit, Josh. Right?
Go on.
Right. Let's imagine that. Oh, you just received a call. Yeah, mum's been stabbed. Right?
Mum's been stabbed.
Call the person who did it. Heaven forbid, right? It was Callum. Callum stabbed your mum.
You've caught me.
Is she dead, or is she just like troll?
She's so dead.
She's okay. She's 6 foot under.
All over. She's looking like a shreddy right now. And they've got conclusive evidence that it was Callum, right? Would you find any sort of satisfaction in watching Callum be put on the chopping block?
Murder or not?
Completely out of context to put it at the start.
Throw Callum right in the chopping block. Well, I would.
All right, let's say someone you don't know. Let's say
I would. Because that person
doesn't give it more satisfaction if it's me.
I would, because revenge. She's been avenged, and that person is no longer on the planet to ever come back into my life again. Right? He's gone.
Okay, but Josh, the thing which I would suggest is that if you do that and you don't find closure, there's no other avenue. You obviously can get therapy, but there's no other avenues which you can really go down with that person specifically. Whereas, if you keep that person alive and you decide that because bear in mind, the prison system does offer a certain amount of retributive justice, if you understand. Because, you know, this person's away, they're having a terrible life, they're never
Yeah,
going to hurt you
but
again. Yeah, I know.
little to nothing compared to the death penalty.
Yeah, I know, but as Fraser said, that doesn't actually bring people a lot of closure, according to people who have actually been through it. But what could bring someone closure is that, let's say in 2 years, they realise that the only way they can get closure is by actually talking to that person, which they wouldn't have done before, then they can still do that. Whereas the death penalty, they can't do that, and they have nowhere else to turn. But I don't think the closure argument really holds up.
Well,
for me personally, I don't need to see the person die. I can just rest assured in the knowledge that they're having a shit time in prison.
Yeah,
exactly. Don't know
That's
that.
enough for me.
Yeah.
You don't know, like, keep in mind, a simple stab someone murder, like to kill one person, and especially if you have a good history of not just doing bad stuff like that before, you'll probably get released on parole after like 25 years, right? Like, very few single person murderers are locked up for life.
But parole is usually given when the convicted has sort of achieved some sense of remorse. So in a way, they are getting that closure in a different form.
Okay, right. But 37% of offenders re-offend on parole, so obviously something's going wrong there.
Is that murderers though, or is that just
you
like
can't use that
drug
statistic?
dealers?
If it's just all murder.
Let me get a murderer's statistic then.
Sort by murderers.
But yeah, but bear in mind, we're not talking about just, you know, the societies in which we live. We're talking about a hypothetical scenario. So to get around the whole reoffender thing, we could just say that if you murder someone, you get life in prison. In our hypothetical scenario, if it does turn out the reoffending rate is really high.
Wait,
so I'm not sure if that really holds up.
Say that again.
So what I'm saying is,
okay, 1% of murderers killed on parole, right? No, that's low. But that's still not zero, so they're obviously doing something wrong.
What did you say before? 37?
Yeah, but that's just criminals.
That's quite a departure.
You still have a 1 in 100 chance of that person that killed your mum or something coming back to probably kill you.
Okay, right? Josh, has that ever actually happened? Has someone ever, been released?
1%, so obviously
yeah, what's the mindset there? Oh, that little dickhead, how dare they be the son of the person that I killed? I'm going to go
get if I was the murderer, I was.
Josh, was that statistic? 1% of people go on to kill family members of the people they've killed, or 1%?
Well, no, they just reoffend.
Yeah, exactly. So that's not what you're saying.
Would you not be worried if someone that murdered someone you know was released?
No, because the only reason they'd get released is because someone that has more expertise in the matter than me, who's just a random family member.
Other than the 1%.
What?
Other than this...
No, but this isn't 1% of all murders.
Well, Callum just lied there.
Wait, no. What did I say?
You said they'd only get released if the people that had more qualifications than you knew that they wouldn't do it, which is wrong.
But they're not going to kill you though, because I doubt that's ever
they
even
might.
actually. Yeah, it
so
might.
You wouldn't be worried if.
No, but Josh, the point I'm making, which is a valid point, is that people that understand the psychology of these murderers and understand, you know, if they've actually changed more than you do, because they're actual experts in the matter.
But they're not always right.
Yeah, they're not always right. No one's ever always right, but there's a 99% chance that they're correct, and you can't really get higher than that.
Well, you can.
Okay, but
not release them. You can kill them.
But then Josh, this goes back to the thing I was saying before, which you can give them an unconditional life sentence in a hypothetical thing. If you want to get around that whole argument.
So you're just saying that instead of doing my argument for the death penalty, just give every murderer an unconditional life sentence.
Well, if you want,
it depends on the circumstances.
Yeah, but Josh, if you're going to keep saying the thing about reoffending, that's one way you can get around it.
Well, and that
is a solution.
Yeah, if
they're given an unconditional life sentence, that just comes down to opinion. Because some people want them dead, some people were fine with them never seeing the light of day again. Right, just being stuck in a cell for the rest of their life, and that's because that's an opinion, and you can't really debate that. So that's kind of a dead-end argument.
Well, do you want to move on from that then?
Yeah.
Okay, so do you want
to wrap up the whole retribution aspect of it?
Yeah.
I just another statistic. I'm loaded with statistics today. Another study by the Law School of Marquette University found that in locations in which the death penalty was absent, family members were healthier and expressed a greater satisfaction with the legal system. So, family members of victims.
I'm quickly going to counter. Correlation doesn't mean causation. You know, like places of the death penalty, they're normally shithole states, right? Like,
but these are specifically people's families of victims' feelings towards the judicial system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's very relevant to them and
Yeah,
would be a key
exactly.
variable.
Yeah, well. So about deterrence.
Right, moving on.
Counter, Josh. Okay, so Josh, do you think it is a good deterrent or not?
Yeah.
So why do you think it is?
Well, because you're killing someone. Like
Okay.
well, most
Yeah.
murderers are released, so a murderer would be like, all right, 20 years in prison to get this prick off the face of the earth. Sure.
Oh, so you
I'll
think
take that.
murderers, like psycho murderers, are hanging out at murder club thinking, "Oh, mate, I was gonna kill someone earlier, but man, that death penalty, I can't. I don't want to do it."
Well, you're basically
some will.
assuming that murderers are rational agents, whereas the vast majority, I would even argue, pretty much all murders either happen when someone's doing another crime and they feel like they panic and they just shoot a police officer, for example, or when they are just not rational people, they're just psychopaths, for example, or sociopaths. They aren't going to be thinking rationally, or if they murder someone who they think is putting them in danger, so for example, an abusive partner, or finally, if they're gripped by revenge, and let's say this person is like cheated on them or something, and they shoot them. So none of these people, which I would just make up the vast majority of murderers, are rational agents. So you can't treat them as such.
Right, but aside from psychos, all those rational agents wouldn't be given the death penalty because there's context. Killing an abuser, accidentally shooting a police officer. They've all got. But none of them are like premeditated, innocent.
No, but Josh, they would be given the death penalty in 6 states because killing a police officer is a capital offence.
Not in this imaginary state that we're constructing. So only
it would only be sociopaths that would be killed in your.
Well, only people that kill innocent people in cold blood. Yeah.
At first, that's quite hard to say.
Well, yeah, like I said, there will be a lot of evidence checking, and yeah,
Okay, so in your hypothetical scenario, you would only kill psychopaths and sociopaths, and you would only kill people with completely irrefutable evidence, which I would suggest would basically shrink to 0.
Yeah, I feel like to set up such an institution for such a small minority of offenders is like it's just a waste. You might as well just not have it.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that's still, like I said, killing just one, even like ever. That's still one person that can never offend and's taken off the earth, right?
No, but a life sentence does that as well. I just don't understand why. I don't understand
why is that not sufficient. Why have we got to go apeshit and kill people?
Even a life sentence without parole, there's still a chance that they can reoffend and kill more people.
There isn't.
There is.
How? If they're not coming out of prison, they can kill other prisoners. Pardon?
Escape from prison, kill other prisoners that may be in for less severe crimes.
Well, here's an idea. Let's invest our death row budget into creating more secure prisons.
Yeah, exactly.
So how would you propose they don't kill other prisoners?
Because even just more prison guards.
Yeah, but you can still, like, let's say you're sitting next to someone in like the prison restaurant. You can still, probably before the guards can intervene, grab the head and smash it into concrete floor a couple of times and probably kill them before the guards can get to you. Like, there's only so much you can improve on security without just sticking them in a box.
Where does this relate to the death penalty? What?
Because I'm saying that unless you kill someone, they can still kill people, even if you lock them up.
Okay, but you're okay with killing prisoners, so that shouldn't be an issue for you.
I'm okay with killing murderers, not like.
Well, let's say we keep all murderers in the same place, right?
All murderers in the same place. Then yeah, sure.
Okay, well, let's do that.
That's the solution.
Okay, so in our hypothetical scenario, we're going to put all murderers for unconditional life sentences in one place.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Does anyone oppose that?
Yeah, so you don't have the death penalty.
That's good.
Anymore. Yeah.
All right, so we fix the death penalty then.
Yeah, we reach consensus.
Unconditional life sentence in the same prison as murderers.
Right. Okay then. I guess we'll leave it there unless anyone's got anything else they want to add.
No, it's all good.
Happy? Yeah, I'm happy with that.
No conclusion. I didn't think we'd all end up agreeing on something, which is really
it's only came, isn't it?
Yeah, it just came.
Quite efficient.
Yeah, guys, feel free to let us know if we've said anything awful in your opinion, and you feel free to logically destroy us via a comment or a message or anything like that. Additionally, if you wanna come and speak to us and argue with us, then let us know, and we'll probably be able to make that happen. I mean, I don't think we're two books right now.
No.
What do you guys want to talk about we'll talk about next week.
I think we should talk about school because that's something we all know about. It's been through.
Well, the
Yeah,
education
yeah.
system. Yeah, that
we
could be a
could
good one.
devise our own curriculum. That could be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That could be good.
Wow. Really fun. No, I promise. It's always fun with us. Right. Yeah. Cheers for watching. Thanks for joining me, guys.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
You sound like me when I leave my mate's house.
What?
Thanks for having me. You know. Right. Yeah. No. Cheers, guys. See you later.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.